I'm going to start with you, Ian, and you, Charlie, because it was your idea. And I wanted to know how you came up with the idea and how you started to write it, what you wanted to do with it. Because the thing that I really like about this episode, and I've seen 2 more, is that this series is not a kind of issues series. It's not a kind of examination of euthanasia. It's a character-driven series. And I wanted to know how you decided to do that and what was your trigger point.
Me or you?
You can start.
Well, I mean, we've been working together for a while, and we're always turning over situations and trying to find interesting, sort of compelling setups, I guess, and stories. And for me, that's always it's about putting ordinary people in an extraordinary situation, but it's also about that, being able to recognise it. And we were talking about. I was talking a bit about my mum and dad, who are, getting on, as you can probably see, and we talked about, going to funerals and how you only see your old friends at funerals, and when there's been a tough one, well, you carry on.
Well, a family member had somewhat unhelpfully said, "Oh, if I get like that, take me out the back and shoot me," to my mum, and we were like, "Bloody hell!" And then we started talking about, if you were really asked to do that by someone you loved. I mean, obviously this has been a joke, but we were just telling this over, like Ian says, and thought it would be a great idea for a drama. I think we kind of came up with most of the premise kind of over a coffee, and then the idea.
It was lunch. I think drink may have been taken.
Food was involved. I think okay, and then these 2 characters kind of appeared in that discussion, and a quick hop, let's give it a jump. 12 years later, here we are. So very quick to make.
It's drama for you.
But everyone says it. Everyone's heard someone say that. Lindsay's line, "If I ever get like that, take me out the back and shoot me." Everyone says it. Everyone's heard it. No one ever does it. These guys do.
Yeah.
So be careful what you say around us.
Well, exactly. You're all formidable. So, Lindsay, I just wanted to ask, what's it like to arrive on screen to Queen Bitch in a convertible, smoking, with sunglasses? That is pretty cool.
It's the dream.
And an excellent Mac also.
Absolutely. That's why I signed up. The rest,
The rest you weren't bothered about. It's an absolutely wonderful character, isn't it?
Oh, it's a fantastic character. Yeah. She's, I think a lot of the characters in this are just what you want characters to be in a drama. They're layered and they're complex. And Phil is particularly that. She's tricky. And she's not satisfied. And she's a strong woman. And it's very interesting to see someone sort of chafing at the bit in the way that she does, just having had so much and still wanting more. And it doesn't make her particularly appealing, but I hope it makes her compelling, because the engine's still running, and the thing is that this is about people in their 70s, but people in their 70s are not always thinking about death. Some of us are still thinking about life. We're really interested in the next bit, and I think this show. It gives the opportunity to explore that.
Yes, exactly. It's not just death and grandchildren. There are
Exactly.
other aspects. So, look, Clarke, I also wanted to talk to you about your character, because he's incredibly enigmatic, I feel, Ken. So, I've watched 3 episodes. I'm still definitely not. I haven't got the whole story there. When you started to play him, obviously you know the background, you know the hinterland. How did you decide to play this kind of... He's quite a cool dude.
I thought that there's something in what Peter says, or David says, that you would just lie about being in the special services anyway. So we just don't know. The issues are such that if anyone sits and thinks about them, that it'll affect you. As you say, if a friend says, "Oh, we say these things," all I did was sit back and think about that. a couple of weeks ago, my best friend showed up at our house, and we had this discussion. You know, and I thought, ooh, this is a bit serendipitous. I'm not going to stick your head in the pool now, but you keep messing with me. No, it's so, and I think that's what you're asking is how do you prepare for this? How do you prepare for anything like this? You know, these are issues that we are grappling with now, you know, and from time to time, you know, I do wonder, you know, what's going to happen, you know. But like Lindsay says, you know, that is not what is preoccupying my mind at all, you know. But when you do have a moment to sit back and reflect, you know, then at this age we seriously reflect. We have moments of seriously reflecting what it's like, you know, what might I want, you know. So that was my prep.
Yeah.
Other than that, I just stayed in the sauna and swam. Why not?
Quite. And Sue, Marion, we see a little bit of Marion here, and then I'm obviously don't reveal what's going to happen. But the third episode of this fantastic series is a big Marion episode, and I, without revealing that kind of situation, it's yet another situation within the. It's hard to do this when you're not allowed to reveal any of the plot, but there are kind of things that Marion has to grapple with that are very difficult, aren't they? And she's a very warm and loving character. She's almost within the whole of the scene. She's the warmest. She's like the heart, isn't she? Was it nice to play that?
It was, yes. It was it was lovely because I play so many tough women. So yes, it's lovely. She sort of melted into the background, and she's a bit of afraid of her own shadow in lots of ways, and I think sort of almost felt she's the weaker amongst this group. So it was lovely to play her. I obviously wanted to play Lindsay's part.
Listen, I wanted to play it. I'm not even an actor. I was like, I'll be her.
But it is. But the thing that it's very striking because of what that Clarke says, because you know you do get to play when you get to. My agent said to me a couple of weeks ago, "No more old ladies in beds." You know, you're worth more than that. And, you know, because that's what you get. All right, oh no, we need an old lady, get Sue Johnson, get them in a bed, you know, old ladies at the end of it, push them down the pier. And you're sort of very much pigeonholed. But like Clarke says, we don't live our lives thinking that we're going to die. But we're living strangely at a time when we are losing our friends. So every so often, the shock of reality of death confronts you, like it doesn't when you're young. It does sometimes when you're younger too, but more often you suddenly think, I'm going to more funerals than I ever go to a wedding. And a friend of mine, not to bring this down, but a friend of mine died last week, and I sat at his bedside looking and thinking, would he like me to put his pillow over his face? But I'd never had that conversation with him. But it made us. I talked about this program to this family in the room, and we all talked. Then you talk about it and you think about it. You really think about it.
Yes, you do.
You really think about it. And whether you'd have the courage, because it takes courage to help somebody and to do the act. But sorry, I've gone very morbid.
No, it's absolutely the centre of it. It's like the centre of it. But Chloe, that is I mean, you know, when we've watched this first episode, it's, you know, we get the cool side, we get the hint of the love affair, we get the humour, and then at the end, we get the reality of what this is about, what has been asked. And for me, when I first watched this, obviously I watched it on a computer at home with my earphones on, you know, like that. And my husband was on the thing, and I went, oh! And he's like, oh, you're right. I got very upset. It's very upsetting. So you're, as a director, that's a big responsibility to show that it's obviously not real, but it felt very real.
Definitely. I mean, I think that is the heart of it, really. I mean, you know, going into it, I think we all collectively wanted to make sure that that felt as convincing as possible and as tender as well as possible. You know, it's an act of love, even though it's an immense act of violence as well. And I think that it's so hard to get that balance. And I mean, Carl's performance is incredible as Tom.
Yeah, fantastic.
And of course, Lindsay and Clarke, you know, either side of him, literally. And I think we just, you know, we spent 2 very intense days on
I was going to say, on boats.
And, you know, we all had to be really generous with each other, and we had to choreograph it minutely, like every detail, every single touch, you know, like a dance, because it's, you know, a really full-on thing to do for everyone, especially, you know, Clarke as well. Like, it's very, very violent. And I think, yeah, we wanted, you know, when I read the script, it was such a clear tone I felt that needed to be created. You know, the scripts were so beautifully written. And so, yeah, it was just trying to capture that mood, really. And I think if you can get the emotion right, and you can get a balance between it feeling shocking but also tender and sort of warm, as well as you know, hard, then I think you can help the audience, you can hold their hand while it's happening and say, this is the right thing. Because, you know, and that's the hardest thing of all, is to believe that saying goodbye to someone is right for them.
Yeah, very true. I'm going to go back to you, Ian, because there are, like, you were like, don't talk to me. You're on a panel. I'm going to ask you one thing. But it's to do with the writing of it, because if you write these characters, as the series goes on, we've had a kind of setup here, but there are other layers going on, aren't there? There's 2 other layers that I want to talk about. One is a love affair, and one is a thriller. So you kind of managed to combine quite a lot in the series.
Well, we try to. I think, the love affair is very evident, I hope, straight from the get-go. And that, you know, is a very satisfying, for me, story that plays out all the way across. But, you know, one of the reasons that people don't do this, even though they all say they should or might, is that it's difficult to do, as we've seen, but it's also complications ensue, and it's illegal. You know, so we'll see how that plays out. But you're absolutely right. Those are the 3 strands, really, which we try to kind of weave together, and have fun in all of them. Would you like to say something?
Yes. Yeah, I think also there was a character that you guys haven't met yet, is Aisha, who's a young police officer who kind of adores Phil, looks up to her, and ends up, without giving too much away, clocking that something is awry. So the idea of these 2 female police officers kind of having this back and forth felt like a fun way to do that investigation. But yeah, I mean, I think also just seeing this love story unfold is one of the most important parts of it. And also, I think, in terms of the moral complexity of the pair of them doing this together, and who's leading it at any one time, who's resisting, and how that changes and goes back and forth is interesting, and also a key part of them. I don't want to give too much away, but, you know, we know where it's heading. but that dance, I think, is delicately balanced, and I think, and the romance and the violence and the moral complexity of what they're doing becomes really infinitely complicated over the 6 episodes.
Lindsay, I want to ask you a little bit about about the fact that you're given. I mean, you're given a lot to do, and so are you, Clarke. There's a lot within the characters, because you're playing a love affair that should have happened, that might happen, that went wrong for various reasons. And there are moments, especially in the 2nd episode, where I kind of laughed at how direct Phil was in what she wanted and how she went about it. She's a very particular person, isn't she? The love affair softens her, I felt.
Yes. Yes, it definitely does. And it's also, you know, it's all about context, which is so wonderful about the writing, is that, you know, you see her at a point in her life where she's treading water, and she's never done that. And she's been doing it for too long. And within the marriage, they want different things,
Yeah.
you know? And so, in a way, it sounds so crude, but she's ripe for the situation that she finds herself in. The fact that Ken comes back into her life has a huge effect because there's nothing to distract her. She's not the career woman any longer. She's just waiting for something to happen, and it's Ken. I this is just what I feel. It's you, baby. I mean, no surprise, but I also think that because of that, this is just my thinking about it, but I believe that it's held up in the writing, is that the thinking about whether Tom should get help, the rehearsal. It's a sort of situation that you find yourself in. If you talked about it in advance, you go, well, no way. But actually, proximity to Ken, I think, drives that, whether it's subliminal or not. She wants to be close to him. She wants to, do something with him. Maybe not kill someone, but it takes her further into things than otherwise might have happened.
Yeah.
There's something that happens to all of us when you're somewhere in your teens and the hormones are developing. And those who have been fortunate to have friends, from then to this time, there's something that is absolutely unique about that, and there's some unfinished work or friendships that everybody in the world goes through, I think. And that's a good point that equally for Ken, I think whatever it is that we do together, we do it together because it has that connection to the past, that connection to something that was innocent, something that was pure, whether it's true love or true hate or whatever, I think that we all hold that, and so coming to, it was really very, very, very upsetting playing that out with Carl. It was very upsetting.
Yeah, it was.
And I think that the truth of it was something that will never be seen on camera because it affected us after the fact when it descended on us. We had to really go and find our space for what we have done. And I would imagine that if someone were really doing that same thing would have happened,
It was the thing that we rehearsed more than anything else, wasn't it? I mean, from, just however many days, not many days that we had in the rehearsal. I remember we got chairs, didn't we? And tried to make a boat and put the chairs and went, this is really small. And I think, well, this is it, it's really, really small. But Chloe, as she's already said, is adamant, and I know that was everyone's feeling, that this was something that had to be properly achieved. It had to be shocking. And not in the way that we see so much violence, don't we? I mean, God knows we see enough illegal things done on screen, that are less shocking than this. And that it should be, because these people are not murderers. But it is undeniably, when you see it, the end of a life. And I mean, Miranda, I watched it on my iPad. And I was devastated. Oh my God, I was there. And it was so shocking. And that's the bar, isn't it? It had to be like that.
And it was.
And I think you did.
Chloe just wished you watched it on a proper screen.
Before I go to the audience, there's a couple of things I want to talk about. There's two portrayals. I mean, as I said, I've only seen 3 episodes, but there's 2 different marriages within this. So there is Phil and Nigel played by Phil Davis, and there is Marion and David. And Phil and Nigel, from the second episode going on, there's so much going on there because there is warmth in there. It's incredibly funny. The differences between them are incredibly funny, but there is despite the fact that Phil obviously has feelings for Ken, there's still something there, isn't there?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, there's years and years of a relationship, a home, a child. There are now grandchildren, which is, for Phil certainly the chance to explore being with children in a way that maybe she didn't. She's an absolutely driven career woman. But I think it's really important that although Phil is frustrated and wanting more out of life, this is not a sour relationship at all. It's full of love and affection and respect. And Nigel, played brilliantly by Phil, who kills me actually.
She's giving too much away. Spoiler alert.
Good one, Clarke.
He's given up. He's given up quite a lot to be with this woman, and she knows it. So it would be a far less interesting story if that relationship didn't have real substance and heart.
But it's like two worlds colliding, isn't it? Because he's there and it's the world of downsizing, and that wonderful line when he's, it's like from the bungalow to the hospice to the cemetery, and that's sort of what starts happening as well. My daughter-in-law says, when are you getting rid of this junk, so that you can downsize? It starts coming into your life, isn't it? So seeing that side against this side is just amazing.
Yeah.
And yet they're both true. They're
both absolutely true. Yes.
Yeah, very much so. There's a line actually. There's that line in the episode 2, but there's also a line in episode 1 in episode 2 that I think David says. It says, "Don't downsize," because he says you go smaller and smaller boxes.
Yeah.
So you end up until they end up measuring you for a wooden overcoat.
Yes. Yeah, quite.
So there's all that aspect all the way through, and without revealing too much, the same thing is going on with Marion and David. They have a complicated relationship, and it's interesting to see older people in complicated marriages, because often you're just presented in, happily married or not happily married.
Yes.
It's not, without the complexity of a real relationship.
Well, it's almost like when you get to a certain age, I don't think young people think you have anything. You're just old. You're granny and granddad, or you're Mr. and Mrs. whatever. And you sort of have stopped being all the things, but we've lived a huge life, and we've not stopped living that life.
Yeah.
Hopefully, not yet anyway. So we have old people that you see on the streets have a story. They have a backstory. They have so much, but it's often ignored. It's just you are pigeonholed. Like, off you go, be an old person in a
in a cliched manner. Yes, exactly.
And I wonder if it's ignored, or if it's just that, and particularly today, that people are just preoccupied with so many other things.
Yeah.
When life was simpler without the technology of something constantly drawing your attention, you could sit with grandma.
Yes.
And you had a better sense of it. You could go up to the attic and open up a box and discover some old photographs. Who's going to pick up an old flip phone and find some old photographs? There's grandma. Or letters. We don't do any of that. So it's really important, I think, to just acknowledge each other. And see where everyone is at. Make sure that we're all okay with each other as well.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the job of drama to answer questions. I think it's the job of drama to ask them, really. And there's op-ed writers who will write, they bring opinion, and polemicists, bring polemics, and podcasters podcast. But writers of drama, I maybe it's a bit of an excuse for me to say that, but I don't think it's our job to answer questions. I think it is our job to be quite careful with it and try to not sort of push wildly in one direction. It is a deeply complicated subject, and I hope as the drama unfolds we treat it carefully and respectfully. But I don't think we're saying one thing or being didactic with it. I think we're trying to put ourselves in the position of the characters and then ask ourselves what we might do in the same situation. And so tease out some sort of honest feelings about it without actually, saying, I think this. I don't know what I think about the current legislation or what it should be. I actually don't know. I think it's really complicated. And I hope we take it to a really complicated place, so we don't say it should be this or should be that.
I think what happens with morality is that there's a collective agreement, and that is sort of instilled in us either through school or through church or temple or synagogues, wherever, and that we subliminally accept that. But in the case of young people who have not had a life, I would say, no, I ain't taking that true love. I think, and even for ourselves at this age, it may not be the correct thing to do, but it's more we can almost deal with it with people who are of a certain age, because they've lived. There's a bit of an experience in life, that collectively we have said, oh, they've lived their lives, they can go on and do whatever, or not. But I think as far as the point of morality goes, I think it is something that we have collectively agreed upon, that as you get older, you have more license. There's a line that somebody says, oh, I think it's Tom. He sees another old person died. Who cares? Really, who cares? Who cares?
I care, Clarke.
I care. We all cared. We cried.
But if it's a child, right? We immediately go, oh my God, right? If it's a teenager, if there's someone in the late 20s, we begin to suspect. We question how their departure came. Were they on drugs? Was it a gun? Or did they just, So I think that there's so many facets to this movement on.
Go on,
I
Lindsay.
can't be objective about this because I absolutely love Chloe. I'm a little bit obsessed, and
It's mutual, don't we?
it is, yeah. But I thought, and this is true. I thought it was, and I think the thing, that we're talking to younger people, and I thought that was brilliant. Really good move to have a younger eyes on this. Very, very helpful and important. And, Chloe happens to be a wonderful director and really nice to look at on set. I like looking at her.
I actually, this was something that I thought a lot about before I met the cast. And I was probably quite self-conscious about it because, I hadn't set up a show before, and I hadn't worked with actors who were as experienced. And it was the best part of the whole experience by a long way because it was, actually experienced actors don't tend to come to work with many insecurities because they've done it for so long. They understand their role, they have done their work, they turn up, they're present, they they teach everyone to just not take it too seriously, but to take all the right things seriously. And I think I learned a huge amount from, the cast, and it was a complete joy. And I never felt that there was, the age gap never felt like something, that was like in the room. It was, we were all just working and trying our best, and, yeah.
When we first met, Chloe, she said, "You should know I'm not as young as I look."
I'm not.
and she even said, "Look, I've got a grey hair." one, ladies and gentlemen.
And may I add that it took us.
Well, I got a few more, for making the show, yeah.
It took us 3 months to teach her that, though.
I mean, anything that makes you feel fragile and that, that your time is fugitive, and you think it's precious, and you want to cling on to it, and you want to hang on to the relationships you've got with the people you love, is probably helps, sensitize you, I guess. I don't know.
It's not quite like an answer to that, but I do think we do fear talking about death. There is something about our society that keeps death at bay. And if it provokes a talk about old age and death and facing death, then that would be a good thing.
And
I think not the only thing, because it's so much, there's so many more layers in this, and from their performances, that it would be, so it's also a thriller. It's great, it's wonderful, and it's funny, but it will ask this fundamental question about facing life. Could you do it? Could you, if a friend asked you, would you be willing to, and maybe, and that would be, it's not a bad thing to have to face it, talk about it. It's all going to happen to all of us. We all have to look at the future.
And it must be kind of cool, because ain't nobody come back to say that it ain't. Oh, really? It's got to be one hell of a party, right?
If only the world. Oh, God.
Chloe,
What's it doing?
Me first.
would you do it?
It would depend on the context. And I think that actually, to your question about youth, a friend saying, "I've had enough, can you help me out on a boat," is completely different to someone with a terminal illness who's going to be dead in 6 weeks or 2 months. I think I would, it's a conversation I have with my parents. They're both extremely...
She asked that question.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's something that I think I would consider, but it's illegal currently. But I think our show will ask questions. Everyone has their own personal feelings about this issue. I think that, personal agency in death is, a dignity that we should afford people. However, it is such a kind of knotty, complex topic that can be, subject to abuse. So that's somebody else the question. I don't know if I would. It would depend on the context.
I think you just wanted yes or no, didn't you?
Yeah.
Like, would you do it? Would you not?
No comment.
I agree. I think context is everything, and I think also it's very easy to say empirically I would or wouldn't do something. I think we're all capable of many things depending on what happens to us and what life throws at us. So I don't know. I think that sounds like a cop out, but I really think it. You can. I think one is surprised by what is capable or not capable of, and I think some things you might be able to do absolutely when it comes to it you wouldn't, and the reverse with others. So yeah, I'm gonna duck out as well.
I'm not going to duck out. No, I'm way too scared.
Well, I think if the person whom I was being asked to perform that with was someone who was hooked up to a machine and had really no conscious life, and something is making them breathe and forcing the blood around their body, and they were able to say, "Pull the plug out," I'd pull the plug out. Particularly, and again, it's down to the circumstances. If they had just been there a week, I might say no, give it a try. But I think that, if they give them another week. I think if they've been suffering and they asked for that, and that was the situation, I would say yes. I could never murder anybody, physically do that, but I think like flicking a switch and walking out the room sort of feels like, okay, I had nothing to do with it. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? You know,
If your getaway is good enough.
yeah, that getaway is good enough.
What about you, Sue?
Well, here's the thing, because how many of us have got pets, had pets, cats, dogs, and when they're at their end and suffering, you take them to the vets and you have them put to sleep. And it's agony, but you don't prolong their suffering. And I've done that, and it costs you when you do that. But I can't quite make the leap. Don't know whether I could. Don't think I could do it. I don't think I could, because I don't think I could put my dog down. I have to go, you do it. You do it. I don't want to look, I want to cry.
Exactly. What about you, Lynn?
Well,
She's channeling Phil now.
well, there's a huge difference, isn't there, between witnessing death or being with someone, which can be such an important and wonderful thing, a privilege sometimes, and actually ending someone's life. And I mean, it's impossible to imagine, isn't it? It's impossible. And there are so many variations on, the situation that we need to get down to specifics.
We've got a forensic.
No more. But it's really, unimaginable.
Thank you so much for being a wonderful audience, and I'd like to say thank you to the fabulous cast and writers and director. It's a great show.